What comes to mind when you think of a black man? Defined by the way they look, speak, and move, black men are subject to many labels constructed by our society. All these factors contribute to the way we see black men, meaning we often don't see them at all. We don't see the social, cultural, and political influences on the way black men think and feel, abandoning the concern for black male mental health. As a black woman, living with my own mental health issues, I understand how the overlapping elements of being black and a woman have shaped my mental health. Understanding my own experience has inspired me to explore the minds of black men. Our brothers, our fathers, sons, and friends may all be internally experiencing challenges that aren't shown externally, which is why I am on a journey to deeper understand the mind of our men, the mind of colour. First, I am meeting with Dr. Martin Glynn, a criminologist professor and Black Studies lecturer, to gain a deeper understanding of the roots of mental health in the black male community. Do you think that Afro-Caribbean culture plays a role in affecting mental health?
All the time, because the culture responds to that. And a lot of the kind of perspectives that we have are negative, they're stereotypical, and we respond to that. And it makes us angry, it makes us upset.
Do you think Black history plays a role in anything?
It really depends how you define Black history. You know, the way that Black History Month has become, it's a celebration of facts, figures, information. But Black History Month started in the 1920s as a way that historians were supposed to be developed in the black community to challenge white society. It's not like that now. So what happens is, it's a bit like Black history makes the assumption sometimes that there's no emotional outburst when you realise you've been lied to. For some people, they like the fact that we invented the traffic lights. They like to talk about Malcolm X. They like to celebrate the music of Bob Marley. But when we talk about slavery, colonialism, brutality, denied access, then the whole situation changes. So I think that Black history, when we internalise it, we have to create a way of processing it so that we don't get angry or upset. So in some respects, we're perpetually occupying a psychological space that's unhealthy because we're constantly having to prove who we are, and it's exhausting, and that's where a lot of the mental health issues come in.
What are your personal experiences with mental health?
My earliest experience of mental health is I was about 4 years of age, and I ran under a horse and cart, and my brother, because I thought I was going to get run over, and he dived on top of me and he took my front teeth out. And I never forget having to go to school when I lost my 2 front teeth. And that was one of the first times I experienced name calling, bullying, and it kind of showed me that I was different. So my earliest recollections of mental distress was 4, because I started to get called names in a way that other kids at school didn't. Other kids were running around the playground. I was called names. So that's my earliest recollection.
After meeting with Martin, it became clear that the social and cultural influences in the black community truly shaped the mental journey for black men. Unfortunately, such background information isn't taken into consideration when placing labels upon men of colour. Whilst exploring the foundation of black male mental health, a true and authentic understanding of their experiences could only come from none other than a black man, which is why I'm meeting with Jeremy to explore his personal experiences with mental health.
My name is Jeremy Grant. I am a former mental health service user, but I'm also a now founder of the organisation Form 180. My mental health journey starts from the age of 16, particularly when I was at school. It kind of triggered what's known as an episode. At the age of 18, I had my first admission into hospital, and not long after that I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. So at the age of 22 I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which is a mental health condition that causes you to experience highs and lows. It's classed as a mood disorder. So I'd go in, be put on meds, I was sectioned and everything, but then I would come off meds shortly after recovery, this cycle would occur. Excuse me, where I was going in and out of hospital, just constantly going in and out of hospital until there was a point of a turnaround, what I call my turnaround story. There was a situation in hospital where I was quite distressed. I didn't knock on the door of the office where all the nurses were, but I wanted some attention. I barged in, the door just happened to be open, and when I went in, I tried to get some help, and the lady who was working as a nurse at the time said, "You need to knock before you come in here," and it was very stern. So I backed up, came back in, and eventually got seen to. But lo and behold, this same nurse set up a poetry group shortly after that experience. It was amazing because I decided just to go along. I didn't have to go along to this poetry group, but I was invited to come along. Poetry was one of my kind of hobbies. I'd write it sometimes, but not as much as I do now. I came up with these words: does anyone care? Does anyone not? Is anyone concerned about the trouble we've got? Has anyone considered how we might be feeling and the fact that our hearts are in need of healing? And when they heard that, or when I read it out after I wrote it down, that was when things started to sort of turn around for me. Because I was looking at it from the smaller picture, not necessarily the bigger picture. The bigger picture is me now having a story to tell to others that's inspiring, a success story somewhat, that I can say to others of, yeah, I've been through this, I've come out and managed to turn my life around.
How inspiring is it to see the transformation of Jeremy's experience as he paved his journey through mental health using his art as a form of expression. However, art may not be in the interest of everyone attempting to deal with their mental health. This calls on the importance of service and access to support, which is why I'm meeting with members of an early intervention team based in Handsworth. How long have you been a mental health nurse?
I've been a mental health nurse for 30 years now.
What treatments and facilities are offered here at the Intervention Centre?
So we specifically in early intervention work with people, young people. So we work with people from the age of 16 up to 35 who've had a first episode of psychosis. So we have doctors, we have nurses, we have psychologists, we have social inclusion workers, and we provide medication and treatment. We provide what we call social recovery. So we have people that are in the team that specifically work with people that are struggling to move on after an episode of illness.
What has been the most challenging element of your job?
The lack of resources and not having enough staff generally, or enough resources to provide the care and treatment that we know that really help people. We do our best, but there's a lot more we can do, and we know we can do, but we can't do it because we haven't got the resources, and that's very frustrating.
Hi, I'm Colin, social inclusion worker. My role is supporting young people getting back into work, college. I do social activities, like I take them to the gym.
What is one thing you have learned in your role that you wish the rest of the world knew about mental health?
Basically that everyone can get mental health, but it's just how you deal with it. And it used to be stigmatized a lot, but I don't think it's as bad now. So you can seek for help now and be treated in confidence if you want.
Where do we go now is the question I find myself asking after meeting with Martin, Jeremy and the interventions team. Each have shone a light on different elements that need improvement: cultural acceptance, institutional approaches, and political and financial support for services. Most importantly, the steps needed to improve our attitude to Black men and their mental health are to rethink the perceptions, rethink the stereotypes, rethink the conversations regarding mental health, and involve black men. But most of all, we just need to think.
Think for a minute before you speak. A minute isn't very long. It could actually help you avoid the trouble of saying something wrong. Thinking is defined by the dictionary as the process of using one's mind. It's one of those abilities that makes us unique as a species called mankind. When we think, we come up with new ideas. We use the grey matter between our ears. As the old saying goes, great minds think alike. But is thinking as easy as riding a bike? It might not ever be a problem for you, but thinking for some is quite hard to do, especially if you've been diagnosed with a certain condition and have experienced a recent hospital admission. Think for a minute. If you can, it's a blessing, because for those who can't, life can feel really depressing. Can you think of a person in need right now? They'd probably cry for help, but might not know how. So please, just 60 seconds while you're wide awake, set aside to think would not be a mistake. It could be during the daytime, it could be at night, but if you think for a minute, you'll do what's right.